Last component, scarcity. In basic economics, economics 101, how do they determine the value of something? There's two words, supply and demand, right? The more supply there is of something, the less demand there is for it. The less supply of something there is, the more demand there is of it. This is basic economics, but people tend to forget it. They say, oh man, I'll help everybody. Then guess what happens? You help nobody. The hardest pill you'll have to swallow in this business, and this one took me several years to get okay with, is I have to turn my back on 4/5 of my audience so I can help the 1/5 of my audience that will give the most impact. It's tough. Because you know who needs your help the most? I mean, the people that will gladly take everything from you. And no matter how hard you try, they will not change. They're the kind of people that, if you got time to meditate, you should meditate for an hour. If you don't got time to meditate, you should meditate for 10 hours, right? The easiest people I can make money for are people that already have too much money. And the hardest person to make money for is the person that doesn't have any money. So I start from the top and work my way down. I got this philosophy in business that I think can serve a lot of you very well, is I make the rich finance the poor. I'm like a Robin Hood in this scenario, right? So I had a course once upon a time, it's called Genius Webinars, and we sold it originally for $5,000, and we only allowed 63 people in the room because that's how many people could fit in the room. And I told the audience before I sold them this thing, I said, I'm going to take this very thing that I'm going to do in person for $5,000, and my plan is to later turn it into a course, just the recordings of it, sell that for $1,500. And then I plan from that, with the same material, write the book that I later wrote called One to Many. Lady asked me, I wish I could recall her name, I was going to the elevator earlier today. She's like, Jason, will you sign my book? I said, absolutely will sign your book. She pulls it out. It's all battle-torn. And I said, this makes me very happy. And I make $2.25 off each book sale. But it doesn't matter because the people that were willing to pay me $5,000 a piece were the people in that room that forced me to create the product. So I could later then sell it for $10 to everybody else. So different people have different priorities. Different people need help in different capacities. So why would somebody, knowing that I'm going to eventually, a couple years down the line, sell the thing for $10, pay me $5,000 to sit in a room with me and do it? Why would somebody do that? To somebody making $1 million a year, waiting even 6 months to learn some of the secrets I could teach them would cost them so much money. $5,000 is a better deal. Remember what we said earlier? You've got to make something that it costs more money not to buy it. Now, that's not true for 99% of the market. 99% of the market is like, yeah, Jason, you made like $100 million on webinars, but geez, $20? That's way too much for me to pay to learn the secret from you. It's like you can argue with them, and you're still not going to get their money, and you're going to be upset afterwards. So instead, I control supply and demand. I say 63 special souls amongst the 8 billion people that exist in the world will have the luxury of spending 2 days in a room with me to learn the science of what I'm teaching here. And then people buy that because it's scarce, a lot of demand, little supply, but it's pointed to the right audience. It's pointed to an audience where people know they need this, they've delayed on it, and they have so much money, and the cost of inaction is significantly greater than the investment to hopefully get a return. And so that's why scarcity is so important. The main reason scarcity is so important is because the safest thing anybody can do in the short term is to play small. It's the costliest thing you can do in the long term. But in the short term, think about it. You don't got to enter a credit card in anywhere. You don't got to take control of the goods. You don't have to then do something with the goods. You have zero accountability. So when you sell, what you're really at war with is somebody's inertia. It's a very hard thing to overcome. Somebody's resistance to do anything other than nothing. An object at rest stays at rest. It's the hardest thing you could ever do is get somebody that's on an off state to turn them to an on state. When you got a fire, you toss some gasoline on that, boom, huge. When you ain't got a fire and you got 2 sticks to rub together, good luck. Hard stuff to do. So we got to have an offer so irresistible, even the person most resistant towards it will say yes to it. And by the way, who is the person most resistant towards it? It's the person who needs it the most. So when you're looking at a market and you say, if I can only sell 1 out of 100 of people in this market, who will I sell at the expense of everybody else? This is how I think about it. I think about various different people out there swimming in the sea of life, and some of them are currently drowning. Some of them are just kind of waiting in there. Some of them are just chilling, but there's some of them drowning. And I say, who's drowning? Who needs saved? And then I throw them a life raft. And they say, no, I don't want it. I want to die. And I say, you're going to take this life raft. And 6 or 7 hours later, they do. So I won't give up on them because they don't want to change, because change is scary. So they would rather die staying the same than change. So the offer structure is get, cost, bonus, risk, scarcity. So when you go home, I want you to think about, what am I giving people right now? How do they understand the value of it? What are bonuses that I can offer that make it ridiculous, that make it unbelievably irresistible? How do I mitigate risk as completely as possible? And then how do I use scarcity? Because scarcity will create the action that otherwise somebody would fall victim to the inaction of. Scarcity is the greatest motivator that's ever existed. And so we have to use it. So the price goes up after a certain period of time, or a bonus goes away after a certain period of time, or the experience can only be gotten to a select few individuals who qualify. And you are the ultimate resource for what you have to offer, so you're scarce by nature. I've scoured the world. I've made a scientific process out of this, and I've researched for 40 years now. I have never found anybody exactly like you. And I've interviewed a lot of people. I've never found anybody that's exactly you. It's hard because you're not even showing up exactly as who you really are.